Welcome back to the Deep Dive. So glad you're joining us today for another journey into knowledge.
Great to be back.
And for those of you tuning in on Listen to Deep Dive and Learn Words, a huge thank you for your continued support.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
If you're new here, remember to hit that like button, subscribe, and maybe share this deep dive with anyone else who loves expanding their vocabulary and really, understanding the nuances of English.
Definitely helps us keep things going.
So today we're embarking on a detailed analysis, a real deep dive into Day 8, Part 2 of your vocabulary materials.
That's right.
Our mission? Well, it's to uncover the intricate layers of meaning in some pretty crucial words, not by simply memorizing definitions, not rote learning,
No, definitely not.
but by diving into how they truly live and breathe in different contexts. This isn't just about, acing an exam.
Although that's nice too.
Right. It's more about building a deeper, almost instinctive intuition for the language itself. That feeling, that a native speaker has for precisely the right word at the right time.
Precisely. And what's truly fascinating here, I think, is observing how words, even ones that seem straightforward, gain incredible precision and, well, power when we encounter them in action. We're going to dissect how these words are used in different examples, helping you construct a, let's say, robust conceptual network around each one.
Okay.
Ultimately, this approach goes far beyond mere memorization. It's about profoundly enhancing your reading comprehension and sharpening your critical thinking skill.
Which are crucial.
Absolutely. It's about feeling the language, understanding its rhythm, its subtle shifts, and how these words function in sentences to truly acquire them, not just learn them temporarily.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're kicking things off today with what we've sort of grouped as words of conflict and overcoming.
Powerful group.
Yeah, these are the terms that give us the linguistic tools to describe winning, losing, tackling significant challenges, think battles, whether they're physical or metaphorical.
Right, those internal struggles, too.
Exactly. And our first word in this category is the verb conquer.
Ah, conquer. It immediately brings to mind images of, well, victory and domination, doesn't it?
It really does.
When we look at the first example, the Normans conquered England in 1066. We're talking about far more than just a single battle.
Right, it's huge.
This was a monumental historical event, a complete and often, frankly, brutal subjugation. The Normans didn't just win a fight. They fundamentally seized control of the entire land, establishing a new ruling class, rewriting laws, permanently altering the country's social and political landscape. It was massive.
Yeah.
So this particular use of conquer, it implies a definitive, often forceful, taking of control where the existing power structure is completely overthrown, replaced by the conqueror's authority.
And it really hammers home the finality and the sheer scale of it, doesn't it? It's not just a minor win.
And at all. It's sweeping, transformative, reshapes everything.
But then, if we pivot to the second example, Petrarch celebrated their greatness in conquering fortune and rising to the top. Well, that's completely different.
Totally different application. Figurative.
Yeah. How does one even begin to conquer something as abstract, as intangible as fortune? What does that really tell us?
Well, this is where I think, the profound insight of conquer comes alive. It shows its remarkable versatility.
Right.
Conquering fortune is decidedly not about physical battle. It's metaphorical. It speaks to the human spirit's ability to overcome immense adversity.
Okay.
To master circumstances that seem predetermined or fated, or to triumph over challenges that just appear insurmountable.
Like fate, almost.
Exactly. Imagine a classic hero's journey, right? They face overwhelming odds, maybe a series of misfortunes, systemic obstacles. To conquer that fortune means exercising incredible perseverance, demonstrating profound inner strength, or maybe employing ingenious solutions to turn the tide. It sort of reveals a fundamental human need to frame even our internal struggles, or abstract ones, as external battles that can be definitively won. Asserting agency even when things seem like destiny.
So it's about mastering your circumstances rather than being mastered by them, turning that narrative around.
Precisely. A story of triumph.
And flowing directly from that powerful verb, we get its noun derivative, conquest.
Right.
As in, he continued to expand his kingdom by conquest. So here, conquest, it seems to capture both the act itself and the result.
Exactly. It encapsulates both the specific act of conquering and, the territory or even the influence gained through that act.
Okay.
It's the tangible result or perhaps the ongoing pursuit of that dominant victory. Conquest serves as a conceptual container for the action and its outcome.
That makes sense.
And if you think about a student, for instance, you might metaphorically say they conquered a particularly challenging exam.
Yeah, felt that.
Right. Or maybe a difficult subject area like advanced calculus or something. That intense feeling of achievement, that sense of overcoming a formidable intellectual foe, it directly parallels the historical and figurative examples we've looked at. It's a deeply personal victory, demanding significant effort, strategic thinking, skill, much like a military conquest or that individual struggle against, bad fortune. So the conceptual network built around conquer helps us understand how this single word can elegantly apply to grand history, individual struggles, even intellectual tasks, all while keeping that core meaning of overcoming and asserting dominance.
Okay, that's really clear. Moving on, we arrive at the word defeat. Now, this one's versatile. It's both a noun and a verb.
It is.
As a verb, defeat, well, it just means to win against an opponent.
Right.
I mean, them lose, often putting an end to their efforts.
Pretty straightforward in that sense.
Yeah, like this example. The goal is to defeat the enemy by whatever means possible. This could be military, could be in a game, even a debate.
Courtroom argument, yeah.
Right. It's about ensuring the other side fails. They're no longer a viable competitor in that instance.
And this is where we can draw a crucial, though sometimes subtle, distinction from conquer.
Okay, how so?
Well, while conquer often implies taking control, occupying, subjugating entirely, defeat can simply mean winning a specific contest or making the other side fail without necessarily, occupying their territory or dismantling their whole system.
Ah, I see.
You might defeat an opponent in chess, right? You make them lose that match.
Right, but you haven't conquered their whole chess strategy for life.
Exactly. You haven't conquered their entire strategic approach for future games. The emphasis with defeat is squarely on the opponent's loss and their inability to continue the current struggle.
That's a really insightful point. It's more about the outcome of that specific engagement, not necessarily a total takeover, but like conquer, defeat, also has a powerful figurative use. This example is quite profound. Of course, the use of the internet isn't the only way to defeat poverty.
Yeah, that's a big one.
How do you defeat something abstract, pervasive like poverty? Or a disease? It's not like fighting a person.
Right. Here, the word defeat shifts its focus from a direct, tangible opponent to a systemic or abstract challenge. To defeat poverty or a disease means finding effective, comprehensive solutions. It means overcoming the issue through concerted effort, or significantly reducing its impact, maybe even to the point of eradication eventually.
Plus, it implies a large-scale effort.
Definitely. When we talk about defeating poverty, we're talking about implementing broad strategies, innovative policies, collective actions that lead to its substantial reduction or elimination. It implies a sustained struggle against a formidable, complex problem, aiming for its ultimate eradication, or at least profound mitigation.
So whether it's a sports team trying to defeat their rival on the field, or a whole community working tirelessly to defeat a social issue like homelessness, the word defeat really captures that essence of overcoming an opponent or a complex challenge.
It does.
And as a noun, acknowledging a defeat, like in a competition or a project, it's recognizing you didn't win that round, maybe learning from it.
Right, it's acknowledging the outcome.
It's such a widely applicable word, isn't it? Personal struggles, global efforts.
It really covers a lot of ground.
All right, let's transition now. We're moving into words of opposition and tactics. This section looks at challenge, defense, and the methods used in conflicts or competitive situations.
Okay, the how of conflict.
Yeah, exactly. Our first word here is offend, which is a verb.
Offend. This one has some truly fascinating, distinct layers of meaning, can sometimes trip people up.
How so?
Well, in its most common social meaning, like in, they'll be offended if you don't go to their wedding.
Right, causing upset.
Exactly. It means causing someone to feel upset, insulted, annoyed. Often stems from perceived disrespect, a slight, a violation of unspoken social rules. And what's crucial here is that the action causing offense doesn't always have to be intentional.
Oh, right. Good point.
You might inadvertently say or do something that offends someone's sensibilities, even if your intentions were totally pure. It's about the impact your words or actions have on another person's feelings or dignity.
Right. It's about how it's received, regardless of the intent. But then we see a completely different side of offending in this next example, which really shows its versatility, or maybe polysemy.
Yeah, polysemy fits. Look at this. Cars with pollution monitors that will disable them when they offend?
So here, offend doesn't mean hurting feelings at all.
Not in the slightest. It means breaking a rule, violating a law, transgressing a regulation. It's a much more formal, legalistic, or technical context, completely detached from emotional impact.
Wow, that's a stark difference.
This duality is a brilliant example of semantic shift, how word meanings evolve. The word's Latin root, offendere, literally means to strike against or to displease. So you can see how striking against a person's sensibilities became displeasing them emotionally.
Right.
And how striking against a rule became violating it. A car offends when its emissions strike against or violate a standard, not when it upsets a person. Understanding this split is critical. And from offend, we get direct derivatives like offender, the person or thing doing the offending, whether it's a social mistake or a legal breach, like a traffic offender. And then offensive as an adjective, describing something likely to cause offense, an offensive remark, an offensive odor, even an offensive military action.
So thinking situationally, a speaker might inadvertently say something that could offend a group through cultural insensitivity.
Right, the social...
Or a company offends environmental regulations by dumping waste.
The legal or rule-based meaning.
Okay.
So context is everything.
Next up, we have defend, also a verb.
Defend. This one immediately conjures images of protection, safeguarding.
Yeah, the first example is classic. The role of the military is to defend the country.
Right. That's the most direct sense. Physical protection, guarding against attack, ensuring safety, security of borders, people, assets. Probably the most common understanding for most people.
Sure. But the word's use goes way beyond just physical protection, doesn't it? It evolves.
It really does.
Look at this example, which is really powerful, about intellectual discourse. Without the ability to think critically, to defend their ideas and understand the ideas of others, they cannot fully participate in our democracy.
Yeah, that's crucial.
So here, defend takes on a totally different meaning. It's about arguing persuasively for something, right?
Exactly. Standing up for a belief, justifying an action with logical reasoning. It's about protecting one's position or viewpoint intellectually or verbally against criticism or opposing arguments.
So it's intellectual defense.
This intellectual defense is a key distinction. We're moving from a physical shield to a well-constructed argument.
Okay.
A lawyer defends a client in court not by physically protecting them, but by building a robust legal case evidence logic.
Right.
Similarly, a scientist defends their research findings against criticism from peers by presenting data, methods, reasoned conclusions. And the derivative defender beautifully reflects this duality. A defender in sports physically protects the goal. But in the example, the attacks on ambition are many. Its public defenders are few. It refers to those who vocally advocate for or justify ambition, protecting its place in public discourse.
Advocating for it.
Yes. So defend builds this complex conceptual network around the core idea of protection, whether it's physical borders or abstract ideas and principles.
Following closely, we have attack. Like many we're seeing, it's both a noun and a verb.
Very common pattern.
As a verb, attack implies that direct, often forceful, aggression. The start of a conflict, for instance, they found the least defended area and attacked.
Straightforward military or physical confrontation, a sudden aggressive strike. That's the most immediate image of physical assault.
Right.
But just like defend, it extends powerfully into the figurative. Consider, as funding for science has declined, scientists have attacked anti-science in several books.
Okay, so they didn't physically attack anything.
No, not at all. Here, attacked means launching strong criticism, a verbal assault, or issuing a direct, often aggressive challenge to an idea or a movement.
An intellectual or ideological attack.
Exactly, using words as weapons, essentially.
It's really important then to recognize that an attack can manifest in various forms. Physical, verbal, even digital, like a cyber attack.
Yeah, absolutely.
An academic essay might attack a prevailing theory by presenting counterarguments, disproving its premises. Or a public figure might attack a policy decision with sharp criticism in a speech. The core meaning stays consistent. A forceful, often adversarial engagement meant to weaken or overcome.
And this leads us very naturally into tactic, a noun that's fundamentally about how you conduct such engagements, often on a smaller scale.
Right, the how.
A tactic is a specific planned action or method used to achieve a particular, often short-term goal. as in the manager discussed tactics with his team.
Okay, so the immediate how, like specific plays or moves.
Exactly. The specific plays, moves, or you could say small-scale strategies to win a particular game or segment of a project.
Right. It's a focused, practical maneuver,
Mm-hmm.
a piece of the puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
And we see tactics applied in so many fields, sometimes implying cleverness, sometimes even manipulation.
Unfortunately, yes. Look at the example. Controversies have erupted when the tactics have been used to sell questionable beauty creams or unhealthy foods.
Yeah.
Here, the tactics are the specific marketing methods used, maybe misleading ads, aggressive sales techniques, which might be seen as deceptive or ethically questionable.
So tactics themselves aren't good or bad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're ethically neutral in themselves. They're about achieving immediate goals. They can be brilliant and fair, or they can be underhanded and manipulative.
Okay.
A debater might use a clever tactic like reframing an opponent's point to expose a flaw to counter an argument.
Mm-hmm.
Or a marketing team devises a new sales tactic like a flash sale or an influencer campaign. It's all about the specific, often short-term steps taken to get a desired outcome.
And then we have strategy, also a noun,
Yeah.
often confused with tactic, but it operates on a fundamentally different, higher level.
Much higher level, yes.
The example, we need to devise an effective long-term strategy, points right to the difference.
It does. Strategy is the overarching long-term plan or approach. It's the what and why you're doing something, your ultimate objective. Tactics are the specific, smaller actions taken to execute that broader strategy.
Okay, strategy is the what and why. Tactics are the how.
That's a great way to put it. This distinction is absolutely crucial, especially in professional or academic contexts. A strategy is the grand plan, the big picture, the ultimate goal. The example, Merrill Lynch got legal protection for an asset allocation strategy, shows how strategy involves high-level planning, particularly in business, finance, warfare. Focusing on big picture, often multifaceted goals.
Right.
You first develop a clear, comprehensive strategy, and then you implement a series of coordinated tactics to achieve it.
Can you give an example?
Sure. A company might have a long-term strategy for global expansion. That's the grand vision, the what and why.
Okay.
The tactics they employ would be the specific steps. Conducting market research in target countries, launching tailored ad campaigns, securing local partnerships. Each tactic is a smaller piece of the larger strategic puzzle.
Got it. So for a student preparing for a big exam, the overall strategy might be a structured study plan over months, focusing on concepts, allocating time.
Right. That's the big picture.
And the tactics would be things like making flashcards, joining study groups, doing timed practice tests.
Precisely. The strategy provides direction and framework. Tactics are the actionable steps.
Okay, that makes the distinction very clear.
Yeah.
Finally, in this section, we have nasty, an adjective.
Nasty. A wonderfully versatile word for unpleasantness, though it can range quite a bit in intensity.
Yeah.
Its primary meaning is something highly unpleasant, disgusting, repulsive to the senses, like, this coffee has a nasty taste.
Yeah, a direct negative sensory judgment. Makes you grimace.
Exactly. But its application extends far beyond just taste or smell. It can describe a situation, a person's character, even a comment.
Okay. Like in the example, cope with work that is dangerous, boring, burdensome, or just plain nasty.
Right. Here, nasty describes work that's not just unpleasant, but difficult, demanding, maybe even malicious in nature, like dealing with difficult clients or a toxic environment.
So it covers a lot. A nasty cold, a nasty fall.
A nasty habit someone has.
Yeah.
It covers a broad spectrum of things that are undesirable or inherently unpleasant. You might encounter a nasty surprise, like an unexpected bill.
Or dark twist in a book.
Exactly. Or someone might make a nasty comment intended to be unkind or hurtful. It's powerful because it conveys a visceral sense of something being truly undesirable or even actively harmful, physically, emotionally, or situationally.
Okay. Let's shift gears now to words of comparison. These are absolutely crucial, aren't they, for analyzing similarities, differences, drawing conclusions?
Foundational skills, really. First up, contrast, which can be a noun or a verb.
Right. As a noun, contrast refers to a striking difference or opposition between two things. Makes those differences really stand out.
The example, there is an obvious contrast between the cultures of East and West, illustrates this perfectly. You're highlighting how dissimilar they are. Values, customs, structures. The point is the divergence, the stark unlikeness.
Okay, emphasizing difference. And it also works powerfully as a transitional phrase, by contrast.
Yes, very useful.
The Olympic bidders, by contrast, wanted to get more people doing sport. So here, By contrast, signals that what follows is different from what was just said.
Exactly. It sets up an immediate comparison where the differences are the central focus. It's an incredibly useful rhetorical device for structuring arguments or explanations. Very elegant.
Yeah, it really clarifies things.
So when you're contrasting two political systems, you're looking precisely for where they diverge, where their principles or impacts are fundamentally at odds, or observing the contrast between urban and rural life, noting the stark differences in lifestyle, pace, amenities. It's all about making distinctions crystal clear, highlighting opposition.
Okay. Next we have comparison, a noun. Related to contrast, but broader.
Yes, definitely broader scope. The example helps define it. The films are too different for a fair comparison.
Right.
Unlike contrast, comparison refers to the act of examining two or more things to note both their similarities and their differences. It's a more holistic examination.
Ah, that's the key difference, both similarities and differences.
Absolutely. Comparison is the more encompassing term. You're deliberately looking at both what's alike and what's different to gain a fuller understanding. It's foundational in critical analysis, research, problem solving.
Why is it so foundational?
Because it allows us to draw deeper insights from different sets of information by seeing them in relation to each other. For instance, however, a comparison with data for weeks when there was no experimentation showed that output always went up on Mondays.
Okay.
Here, the act of comparison between two datasets reveals a pattern or conclusion you wouldn't see without looking at both side by side. It's about making sense of info by seeing it relative to other info, not just pointing out differences.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Understanding causality, trends, effectiveness. And its derivative, comparative, as an adjective, means relative to something else. The company is a comparative newcomer to the software market, meaning newcomer when compared to others highlights its relative youth.
Exactly. It adds that dimension of relativity.
So whether you're making a comparison of study techniques or a job seeker is making a comparison of career paths, you're engaging in that essential act of evaluation, discernment, relative assessment.
Couldn't have said it better.
Okay, let's shift gears again. Now we're looking at words of desire and eagerness, words expressing strong wishes, longing, enthusiasm.
Positive emotions, mostly. We'll start with desirable, an adjective.
Right. Desirable. Describes something worth wanting, attractive, advantageous, something good to have or pursue.
Like in, such measures are desirable, if not essential. This indicates these measures are highly beneficial, wanted, even if not strictly necessary for survival. They bring significant value.
And it can also refer to qualities or attributes that are highly valued in a specific context.
Yes, exactly. Meanwhile, the career office found the most desirable trait in a future employer was the ability to offer secure employment.
Okay.
Here, desirable highlights what's most highly prized or appreciated by job seekers in an employer. Not just casually wanted, but highly valued, maybe a top priority.
It speaks to perceived value within a context. And its opposite, undesirable, is just something not wanted.
Pretty much something not wanted, unwelcome, maybe even to be avoided. So a desirable job skill today might be data analysis or problem solving. Makes you more attractive as a candidate. Or a desirable characteristic in a leader could be empathy or communication skills. It's all about what's seen as attractive, beneficial, or advantageous.
Okay. Next we have keen, an adjective. This means very eager or enthusiastic.
Yeah, very eager, enthusiastically interested, possessing a strong desire or sometimes a sharp awareness.
Yeah.
For example, he is keen for the deal to proceed.
So that shows strong personal investment, a sharp desire for it to happen.
Absolutely. A proactive willingness for something specific to happen, maybe for financial gain or strategy. It conveys strong interest and a ready willingness to engage.
Right.
If you say, I was keen to read more books, it means you have a strong, enthusiastic interest in reading and are highly motivated to do it.
So it implies not just interest, but active readiness, a positive attitude.
Exactly. You're not just mildly interested, you're really interested, almost looking forward to it.
So a student who is keen to learn approaches studies with genuine enthusiasm, intrinsic desire.
Right, not just obligation.
Or someone keen on a new hobby, like photography, shows deep engagement. It really expresses passion and focused interest.
It does. And very closely related, we have eager, also an adjective.
Okay, how is this different? The example is, small, eager faces looked up and listened.
Right. Eager describes a strong, often visible desire or readiness to do something, usually with excitement or anticipation. You can almost see the eagerness in those children's faces.
Ah, the visible component. palpable anticipation.
Yeah.
Like companies are eager to win patents for connecting the dots.
Yes, they have a strong, almost impatient desire to achieve that goal, seeing its value and wanting it quickly.
Okay, so let's compare them. Keen and eager. They seem very similar.
They are often interchangeable, but eager sometimes implies a slightly more outward display of excitement or anticipation, a more overt readiness to act or jump in.
Okay.
You might be keen on an idea, suggesting strong intellectual interest,
Right.
but eager to start the project, indicating a desire for immediate action. Both convey strong desire, but eager might lean a bit more towards action-oriented excitement.
So if you're eager to start a new project, you're itching to begin.
Exactly. Or eager for the holidays, actively anticipating with visible excitement, maybe making plans already.
Got it. Subtle but useful distinction. Moving on, we'll look at a fascinating group, words often relating to noticing, differentiating, or feelings of hopelessness. Many start with dis or des.
Right, suggesting separation or undoing. First is discern, a verb.
Discern, to perceive or recognize something, often with difficulty.
Oh.
Something subtle.
Exactly. It's about seeing or understanding clearly, going beyond the superficial. Often requires effort. The example, it is possible to discern a number of different techniques in her work, suggests these techniques aren't immediately obvious.
Right, you need to look closely, analyze.
Yes, apply critical thinking to identify and distinguish them. It implies a careful, thoughtful process of distinguishing patterns, nuances, underlying truths, needs insight, sensitivity, maybe expertise.
Okay, and the other example shows this too. More difficult is discerning precisely how these lean times are affecting society's character.
Yeah, understanding those nuanced, subtle impacts of hardship on values and behavior requires careful, insightful analysis, keen observation, not just a quick glance at stats.
It really highlights the intellectual effort involved. You might try to discern true motives behind a political action.
Trying to figure out the hidden reasons.
Or a musician might discern a faint discord. Needs a finely tuned ear.
Right. Achieving clarity amidst complexity, subtlety, or noise.
Okay. Next, despair, which is both a noun and a verb. As a verb, to despair means to lose all hope or confidence, often profoundly.
Yes, profoundly, overwhelmingly. Think of the phrase, "Don't despair, we'll think of a way out." It's a plea to someone feeling deep hopelessness, urging them not to give up.
Okay.
It conveys that profound feeling of hopelessness or deep, overwhelming disappointment, often when all efforts seem to have failed. The example, looking around, I despaired at the singular lack of imagination about girls' lives, demonstrates this feeling of profound disappointment.
Yeah, a sense things aren't right, leading to a loss of hope for change.
Exactly. It's a deep, often agonizing emotional state, can feel paralyzing.
So, feeling despair after a big setback, academic or career,
Where all doors seem closed.
or witnessing someone despair over a difficult personal situation, it speaks to that overwhelming hopelessness, a belief things can't improve.
Precisely. And from despair, we get the adverb desperately. This one has two distinct but related meanings, both conveying intensity.
Okay, what's the first?
The first implies acting wildly or with urgency due to hopelessness or extreme need, a frantic, last resort effort. For instance, she looked desperately around for a weapon.
You can feel the frantic urgency there.
Yeah.
Back against the wall.
Right. Driven by dire need, dwindling options. But the second meaning is simply an intensifier, meaning extremely or very much without necessarily implying hopelessness.
Okay. Like how?
He grew up desperately poor. Here, it doesn't mean he was poor in a hopeless way, but extremely or exceptionally poor, to an intense degree.
So it just indicates a high degree of something, often negative.
Exactly. This duality is fascinating, one word capturing both emotional extreme and mere amplification. You could be desperately trying to find a solution, pouring energy into a last-ditch effort. Or you could just be desperately tired, meaning extremely tired, not necessarily without hope. Context is absolutely key.
Definitely. And the noun desperation refers to that underlying state.
Yes, that state of extreme need, recklessness, or loss of hope driving those frantic actions.
All right, we've reached our final group for today, all related to seeing.
The many ways we use our eyes.
Yeah, from quick glances to long stares, even public perception. First is scan, noun or verb.
Right. As a verb, scan, typically means looking quickly over something, often to find info or get a general impression without reading every detail.
Like I scanned the list quickly for my name, not reading every entry, just visually searching.
Exactly, letting your eyes glide over to spot key things. But then as a noun, especially in science or medicine, it's much more technical and thorough.
Okay.
According to brain scan experiments, here, a brain scan is a detailed, systematic examination, often using tech like MRI or CT, a medical procedure, a comprehensive investigation.
Wow, quite a contrast. Quick visual search versus thorough tech exam.
It really is. You might scan a report for key figures or get a medical scan to check a condition. And the derivative scanner is just the device that performs the scan.
Makes sense. Next, scandal, a noun.
Scandal refers to a disgraceful event or situation causing public outrage, shame, damaging reputation.
Right, something that becomes publicly seen or known in a very negative, often shocking way. The scandal broke in May. Means it became widely known then, caused consternation.
Exactly. It implies a public revelation of serious wrongdoing, impropriety, moral failing, triggering significant negative reaction, calls for accountability. And if we hear there has been no hint of scandal during his time in office, it means no such damaging public revelations occurred, suggests integrity, or at least successfully suppressed controversy.
Right, it's about events casting a long, damaging shadow on people, institutions, trust, like political corruption or corporate fraud.
They shatter public confidence.
Then we have skim, a verb. In one sense, it's similar to the quick action of scan.
Yes, very similar in that sense. I skimmed the list until I found my name. Reading or looking over quickly, focusing on main points or looking for something specific, not detailed reading. Getting the gist, locating something efficiently.
Okay, but it also has a literal physical meaning.
It does. To move lightly or quickly over a surface, barely touching it. His eyes skimmed over her face, meaning his gaze moved rapidly, superficially across her features, not focusing deeply.
That's a beautiful image, like a stone skimming across water. Light, quick contact.
Exactly. So you might skim through a long article for the main argument before reading deeply, or watch a bird skimming over water to catch insects, just touching the surface.
Following that, glare,
Yeah.
noun or verb with a vivid duality.
It really does. As a noun, glare is that strong, dazzling, oppressive light, painful to look at, blinded by the harsh glare of the sun.
Yeah, that intense brightness forcing you to squint.
Right. But as a verb, glare takes on a completely different human meaning. To stare at someone angrily, fiercely, disapprovingly.
Point
While a woman glares at the back of it, wanting to talk. This is a completely different glare. An angry, fixed gaze, often conveying hostility or impatience without words.
It really emphasizes that dual meaning. Overpowering light and intense, angry gaze.
Absolutely. You might feel the glare of a spotlight, making it hard to see. Or you might find yourself glaring at someone who cut in line or made a rude comment, conveying strong disapproval silently, intense connotations, whether from light or strong emotion.
Next, glimpse, also noun and verb. As a noun, a glimpse is a very brief, incomplete look, often accidental.
Yes, fleeting. He caught a glimpse of her in the crowd, didn't get a full, clear view, just a momentary flash as she passed. It's about seeing something for just an instant, often partially or imperfectly.
And as a verb,
To glimpse. To see something for a very short time, often partly or imperfectly due to speed or obstruction. But
Right.
the human mind can glimpse a rapidly changing scene and immediately disregard the 98% that is irrelevant.
wow. That highlights our mind's ability to quickly process fleeting visual info, selectively filtering.
Exactly. It speaks to our subconscious filtering. So you might catch a glimpse of a rare bird flying rapidly.
Or get a glimpse of someone's personality in an unguarded moment.
Precisely. A quick, often unintentional, usually partial sight.
Very similar, but with a subtle difference in intentionality is glance. Noun and verb again.
Yes, and the intentionality is key. To glance means to take a quick look at something. She glanced at her watch. Usually intentional, a conscious, brief movement of the eyes, often for a practical purpose.
Okay, so glance is typically conscious, quick, while glimpse can be accidental.
That's a good summary. He walked away without a backward glance, means he didn't even take a quick, intentional look back, signals disinterest or a deliberate choice not to engage.
So comparing them, glance is often more intentional and less fleeting than glimpse. You might take a quick glance at headlines
To get a summary.
or glance nervously around a room, a quick deliberate visual check. Then we come to gaze, noun and verb. This one's about a sustained, thoughtful look.
Or often emotionally charged, yes. As a noun, gaze is a steady, prolonged look, often suggesting deep thought, wonder, admiration, scrutiny, lived almost entirely secluded from the public gaze, meaning public attention or scrutiny.
Right, he avoided being seen or judged. And as a verb.
To gaze means to look for a long time at someone or something, especially in admiration, deep thought, or because you're lost in contemplation. A typical infant will instinctively gaze into its mother's eyes.
Ah, that's a prolonged, deeply emotional, focused look. Bonding.
Exactly. It's a strong contrast to the fleeting glance or accidental glimpse. A gaze is intentional, prolonged, often emotionally charged. You might gaze at the stars.
Fills with awe.
Or an artist might gaze thoughtfully at their work, a much more immersive, reflective way of seeing.
Okay, next, peep, noun and verb. This one brings a sense of furtiveness, quick curiosity.
Yes, exactly. To peep means to look quickly and often stealthily, usually through a small opening or from a hidden place. Implying secrecy or curiosity, he was peeping at her through his fingers. Suggests a discreet, maybe mischievous look, trying to see without being seen.
Often associated with trying to observe without drawing attention. And as a noun, a peep is just a quick, furtive look.
Right. Dave took a quick peep at the last page, quickly looking, probably not wanting to be caught, maybe spoiling a surprise. You might peep through a keyhole.
Or take a peep at a hidden gift.
Exactly.
Finally, we have browse, verb or noun. Describes a more casual, undirected way of looking.
As a verb, to browse means to look through something casually, no specific goal, just seeing what's available, passing time. She browsed the shelves for something interesting to read, not searching for anything specific, just exploring.
It's a leisurely activity. For pleasure or general interest, no pressure. And as a noun, browse is just the act of looking casually.
Yep. The gift shop is well worth a browse, invites you to take time, explore, and of course we connect this instantly to the derivative browser.
Ah, the internet browser.
The tool we use for browsing info online, exploring pages without necessarily a specific destination. You might browse clothes in a shop or browse the internet for general info, not a specific answer.
Okay, and lastly, but definitely not least in this visual set, stare, verb or noun. A very fixed, intense look.
Yes, fixed and often intense. To stare means to look fixedly and intently, often with wide eyes. Can imply surprise, rudeness, anger, deep concentration. I screamed and everyone stared. Suggest a fixed, surprised, maybe shocked look, attention suddenly drawn.
And as a noun, a stare is that prolonged, fixed gaze, often conveying strong, sometimes unsettling emotion. He fixed the interviewer with a penetrating stare.
Right, implying a direct, often intimidating or intensely focused look, perhaps conveying seriousness or analyzing the other person. While gaze can be reflective or appreciative, stare often has a more direct, sometimes unsettling or aggressive quality, or just extreme, unblinking focus.
So you might be staring blankly into space, lost in thought,
Or exhaustion.
or receive an uncomfortable stare from a stranger that makes you feel self-conscious.
Precisely. It covers a range of intense looking.
Wow, what an absolutely incredible deep dive into Day 8, Part 2. We haven't just learned words, we've really explored how they paint pictures, convey emotions, shape our understanding.
It's been fascinating.
From conquering challenges to the nuances of seeing, these words really expand our expressive power and our grasp of English.
Indeed. What truly stands out to me is how much richer, more intuitive our comprehension becomes when we move beyond isolated definitions, when we appreciate the diverse contexts a single word can inhabit. This contextual understanding, this active building of a conceptual network connecting literal, figurative, technical uses, that's the true shortcut to becoming genuinely well-informed and developing that native-like intuition we're always striving for.
Absolutely. So what does this all mean for you, the listener, on your own linguistic journey? Well, the next time you encounter one of these words in an academic text, a business report, a casual chat,
Anywhere, really.
we hope you'll not only recognize it, but instinctively grasp its precise meaning in that moment, seeing all the layers and connections we've discussed.
And this brings us to an important question for you to think about. How can actively seeking out and comparing different uses of a word in various sentences or real-world scenarios deepen your understanding more effectively than just memorizing a definition?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Think about how building these rich conceptual networks fundamentally changes your approach to vocabulary acquisition and retention.
We'd absolutely love to hear your thoughts on that. And any surprising new connections or insights you made today, share them in the comments.
Please do.
And don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell for Listen to Deep Dive and Learn Words. Your engagement really helps us keep these explorations coming.
It truly does.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep into the wonderful world of words.